Hola amigos, Sweatshop Book Club episode 6. This time we're going over the Charlie Francis training system by, of course, Charlie Francis, subtitled The Most Comprehensive Training and Preparation System Available. On the other side of this is the USA Weightlifting Sports Performance Coaching Course Manual. I won't be going over that in subsequent episodes or this one at all. This is for level 1. Not going over it. This is in a binder. And what I've been doing lately is if I get something digitally, I'll print it out, put it in a binder, and then I'll put a second book, which might be related or might not be related. Most of the time it's related, but this one is not. And I'll put it on the other side of the book, just so I can kind of consolidate and go back and forth a little bit. Most of the times I'll be reading more than one book at the same time. So if I can read both of them within the same hand, it is hyper helpful. This book was actually given to me, passed on by my good buddy, James Carr. So shout out to James. I have a few friends that we have digital book. Say hi. Say hi. Say hi, Phoebe. She's trying to sleep. I have a few friends that we go back and forth with PDFs and stuff. We'll send each other, we'll trade and do different things. So that's an open invitation. If you want in, you can get in. I'm gonna scoot over and hang out with her. Lay down. Good? Okay. So what we're looking at here is Charlie Francis was actually an elite sprinter in 1971. He was ranked 5th in the world. And he is most notably significant for two reasons in my mind. Number one, because he was a Canadian Olympic coach for the sprints team. Ben Johnson was his guy, who I believe in the 88 Summer Olympics ended up breaking the world record as well. You want to get out of here? As well as getting gold, and then 2 days later getting popped for performance-enhancing drugs. That's in here as well, and that's in here in a different book called Speed Trap that's also by Charlie Francis, which is also important. The second reason I mentioned that is success leaves clues, and a lot of strength coaches, performance coaches, physical preparation coaches always refer to Charlie Francis, or they refer to someone who holds Charlie Francis in high esteem. So at the very, very end of the ladder, or the top of the ladder, whichever way you want to look at it, Charlie Francis is a name that's always around and within the realm. So very excited to get my hands on this, so appreciate James. Usually you'll see that I quote stuff. I'm not going to be too extensive with this. Some stuff I do agree with. I like the idea of the vertical integration. It's very important, as well as the high-low. When I say high-low, high CNS and low CNS days, that should complement each other. I'm not going to get too much into that, into programming, but that's all laid out in here. Some of the chapters, this is one of the best prefaces that I've read in a book. Charlie Francis Communicator, Charlie Francis Coach, Drug Use and High Performance Sprint Training. It underlies sports ranging from gymnastics to soccer. Coaching as an art form is the forward. Biography of Charlie Francis, that's nice to have in there. And then there's 11 chapters of very salient information. And I usually say salient information, but what I mean by this is the title of the chapter gets right down to questions you have, because the whole book is formed in a question and answer. It's almost like a whole interview of a book. So this book has been compiled over time where somebody asks a question, Charlie answers it, or he'll have one of his staff answer it, and I'll say staff as masseuses or regen people. There's a lot going on with this. Charlie Francis shows a lot of dedication as a coach through here. He actually spends a lot of time with the masseuses learning how to massage so that he can do that on a daily basis with a lot of his athletes because they need it. He believes in, I mentioned the tachyphylaxis idea before, but he believes in doing a lot of work on the athlete himself so he can feel what they're like, the tone of the muscle, especially during meet day. We want to have some tone in there and make sure that they're explosive and they can sprint fast, but we don't want to get in there too much and manipulate the soft tissue of the athlete so that they kind of have a incorrect central nervous system reaction to where the tone of the muscle should be. If they're a little bit too loose, they're not going to go as fast, they're not going to be explosive. We want some general stiffness in there as well. And whether we're looking for a parasympathetic or sympathetic response from the massage, he knows his athletes so well, and there's a lot of intuitive design within this that he goes over. A lot of it also that I really like, as in chapter 1, talent identification and athlete development. I'll be back to that because that's where the quote I'm gonna pull from is. Sprint technique is chapter 2. Training principles, strength training is important. Recovery and regeneration is super important. Planning and periodization, that is a chapter that I really liked. I like programming, so that's kind of my flavor. Testing and monitoring is also important. Sports psychology is huge. He goes over everything in here. Electronic muscle stimulation, EMS. Charlie Francis is one of the early adapters of using a lot of EMS for his athletes for recovery, and really trying to get his hands on as many different modalities as possible. Politics and coaching, that's an important chapter. Financial aspects like fundraising and things of that nature, how athletes deal with media is also huge. So this covers a huge gamut of different realms and puts them nicely into 195 pages of package Q&A that is simple to read, and it feels like you're having a conversation within there. So I really liked it. Talent identification and athlete development. Some of this stuff has to do with physiology. Some of this stuff has to do with more, I don't want to say archaic, but some things that we don't look to anymore. Especially like, and this is off the beaten path a little bit, looking at hot wax as an idea for regenerative purposes. Massage with hot wax and things of that nature, stimulation with electronics, we talked about that, but the quote I'm looking for in here, if I roll through the preface, I dog-eared it just to make sure I wouldn't waste any of your time, of course, and then here I am flipping through pages, fumbling like a guy in a 90s movie, a scientist in a 90s movie that says an asteroid's coming and he drops all his papers and they go everywhere and he looks like a complete loon. That's what I look like right now. Okay, here it is, finally got to it. Quote, in some athletes, there will be differences in the way their leg musculature is attached to the skeleton. This results in different lines of pull which may or may not represent injury potentials. You will usually be able to find such differences only while massaging the athletes, although in some instances you can see them. You would deal with this situation only if it constitutes a source of injury or if it seems to be impacting negatively on actual sprinting performance. That last part is pretty important. If it seems to be impacting negatively on actual sprinting performance. I recently listened to a buddy, Morris, who is a strength and conditioning coach for the Arizona Cardinals, who likes a lot of Charlie Francis' stuff. He references him almost in every interview that I've heard so far. He said he recently got a rookie that ran a 4.240. That's pretty fast. But he has this atrocious way of running. He's been super healthy, hasn't had any injuries. And Buddy's quote was, what am I going to fix him? And now he was going to run a 4.540 and be slower. If it seems to be impacting negatively on actual sprinting performance, then we'll fix it. This is also a good book if you're looking to enhance your coaching eye. So far within the books that we're recommending out of the first 6 episodes, the last episode, number 5, we talked about triphasic. I would read that before anything else to get a baseline understanding of physiology, the human as an organism, how stress is adapted and how we revert our training or progress it based on the stress and the stimulus thereof. That's important. This is really good for enhancing your coaching eye. He talks a lot about what we're seeing within an athlete, where the glute and hamstring increases should be when we're looking at elite athletes. And another thing that's important that we do in a lot of Olympic lifting out east, not so much here in the West in the US, but until the desired sprint soma type of a body shape is in place, bodybuilding or muscle cross-section methods are emphasized over maximum weight or power methods. Once the sprinter's build is in place, the reverse is true. Maximum weights or power methods prevail over bodybuilding type strength training. Hypertrophy work capacity training is very important to make sure you look like a sprinter so that we can add the power to that. So now that we have the structure, we built the frame, now we can add the engine to it. Now we know with the vertical integration, undulating movement of programming and periodization, and again, programming and periodization, whether you want to do block or whatever, it's just a plan. Have a good plan. Basically what we're saying is we can do both at the same time now. We can be concurrent with it. Athlete development, talent identification checklist. He has 12 different portions of the checklist. The first one, which I love, is high-level sprinters tend to be short-tempered. Explosive and intense. A sprinter will have all of these characteristics even at a young age. An explosive personality is an indication of an explosive nervous system. That reminds me of my 368-day, 368-day-old daughter. She's a year, and she's explosive in her attitude when she wants to be. And it's really, really funny watching her central nervous system kind of placate through different things and athletically solve stuff. So you'll see. Young athletes, this is number 8. Young athletes who do not achieve high levels of oxygen uptake during a treadmill test, but who perform well over 10 to 40 meter sprints probably have inherited a high proportion of white power-related muscle fiber. That's also important, fiber typing when you're young. So a lot of good things. We talk about sprint technique, what you should be doing during strength training, how to work your strength training, super important. So this would be book number 2 in the pantheon of super recommended books. I know Relentless was the first book. If we're looking for really high level killer instinct sports psychology, go there. If you're looking to be a strength and conditioning coach or a coach of athletes or Gen Pop, I would start with triphasic. If you need to get better on the floor as a coach, I would suggest this first for your training eye, and it's very digestible. It's a fun read. So that's all there is. Again, I usually end up at these 12-minute, around 12 minutes for these reviews so far for the SBC setup. So thank you guys for all the feedback you've been giving so far. I've gotten a lot of different questions and different interactions with you guys, so I really appreciate it. I'm gonna keep pumping these things out, keep going, and keep trucking through them. So thanks again. Ciao.